Hello YouTube. Today in this Hypertrophy series, I'm here to share with you the most optimal measure of progression when it comes to muscle growth. This is something that is very common, especially with people who just got started, but is also spread across the board with bodybuilders and people who are seeking hypertrophy. You come to a point where you might not be able to recognize whether you're progressing or not, and that can be extremely frustrating. It can also simply kill any drive you might have because we tend to always want results, and when results are not happening, we stop. There is a very easy way to always feel that progression and to always get the results that the progression creates. But if you don't follow that specific path, you are going to end up very sad and miserable. So I'm going to share with you what I believe is the number one thing you need to pay attention to when it comes to progressing in size. And it might surprise you because I'm not going to say it's measurements. Measurements are actually the worst way to actually try and see if you're progressing in the gym for multiple reasons that I will detail. The best way to know whether or not what you're doing is working for hypertrophy is performance. You need to look at your strength and whether or not it's progressing. Okay? It might sound surprising because we're not powerlifters, and I say a lot on this channel that you shouldn't care about strength. But what you shouldn't care about is the numbers. It's the hard numbers you're hitting. That doesn't matter. What matters is that the numbers grow. This is where the emphasis lays for bodybuilders. And in more specific terms, what you're going to be focusing on is what those numbers are doing to your tonnage, because the tonnage needs to be ever increasing. This is why the absolute number doesn't matter, because it's just a tiny, tiny portion of the bigger picture that is going to keep raising and raising. And that right there is what stimulates hypertrophy, and it's what's making you bigger. So if you're the type of person who, feels down and doesn't understand why they're not growing, etc., focus on this. And I can tell you that you will see results. Is it going to take 6 months? No, but down the line you will see results. And everything I share in the Hypertrophy series is based on that principle. So if you don't abide by it, all of what I've said before in the 50-ish episodes I've made are completely useless informations. So that is, for me, the golden standard. That's what you want to pay attention to, okay? And the reason I said that I would never base any measure of progression on your proportions and their increasement is because that's a result of what I just described. It's not something you can use to actually measure it. Why? It's too slow. Meaning that if you think, okay, I'm going to train my arms and I'm going to measure my arms to see if what I'm doing works, the arms are going to grow so slowly that it's either going to completely discourage you or it's going to give you false information and it's going to completely mislead you when it comes to programming. What is not going to do that, however, is numbers. Numbers are pretty rock solid. And if the strength of your biceps increases over time, over a long period of time, and you accumulate tonnage with multiple bicep exercises, the bicep will grow. You will hear people say that this is not necessarily true because you can increase strength via neurological adaptations, and that's correct, okay? But that's mostly going to be correct for novices, and even then, when you're a novice and you get better at a lift, and you start learning the lift, you still gain muscle, okay? You learn how to use the muscle you have, but you still gain muscle. And then you reach what I will call a technical peak. That's a point in your training career where your form is established, your technique is established. It's not perfect by all means, but the deviation of mastery at this point will not be enough to justify massive gains of strength. And then there's the second portion of that where if you do certain specialized programs that are tailored towards strength, that are usually frequency manipulation programs that are going to improve one lift a lot, then in that case, yes, you can also gain a lot of strength and not necessarily put on a lot of muscle. But I never prescribe these. So if you stay within the parameters of what I tell you to do, with certain rep ranges, focusing on higher rep ranges for tonnage accumulation in the right intensity window, that's not going to be the case. So any increase of strength is really an increase in muscle mass. But the kicker and the good thing for you is that strength goes up much faster than muscle mass. Why? Because measurements are comprised within certain ranges. Okay, your bicep doesn't go from 1 to 10,000. It goes from 10 inches to 22 inches. So that window is also going to dictate that the evolution that happens within the window is small compared to the evolution that you can have on a curl, where you can go from 40 pounds to 140 pounds. And then you look at it across the lifts, where you look at it from tonnage perspective. You could gain tens of thousands of pounds of tonnage. You could progress 200 or 300 pounds across the board on your bicep exercises. So that's a ratio that's completely different. And that's a good thing, because that strength progression is much more suitable to feed our drive for it, our drive for results. But what you never want to do is you never want to start focusing on it, okay? You are progressing in strength to get hypertrophy goals. That constant progression that the number and their evolution provides is going to feed that fire, but it never becomes the reason for the fire. So that's a thing to keep in mind. So that's what I based all of my work on. It's that optimal measure of progression, and that's performance. And to drive performance, I also have an optimal method, that is progressive overload, but I will detail that in another video of the hypertrophy series. Thank you for watching. Have a good day.